Well, welcome to this week's check-in with our weekly vlog, Grace Family. And as you can see, I'm on my porch and decided to just do or have this brief chat uh, from this location for a change of pace. Um, this Sunday, we begin Grace Outside, Grace Outdoors. Um, our service will be at 9 o'clock. Um, as of this morning, about 75 of you have signed up, so we're encouraged. We trust more of you will consider coming out. Um, Very helpful for us if you will go ahead and register and let us know. We'll be making some decisions, and how we locate and situate will, in some measure, be dependent upon those of you who are the size of the crowd that joins us. If you haven't done so, please take a look at your e-blast. Um, we give a lot of guidelines for what's going to take place on Sunday. If for some reason you have not received the e-blast, you can go to our website, and at the bottom of the website, there's a link there for our weekly e-letter, I think it's called there, and you can get it, you can take a look at it, and take a look at the instructions. And so we're looking forward to beginning this next stage of the journey. And for those of you who can't be with us, or as I said last week, choose not to be with us, which we fully support and respect, you'll be able to click on Facebook to watch us in real time through video streaming, or you can watch us later via recording. So just look forward to beginning this journey. I want to take most of my time, it's just going to be a few minutes this afternoon, just to share just some personal thoughts with you. I woke up this morning and was just flooded with just all kinds of uncertainty. And I'll name some more of that in a moment. And I just began journaling, and God took me to a wonderful psalm, and I want to share the psalm. It's only 5 verses, and it's Psalm 93, and thought I would encourage you with it today and challenge you a little bit, just from a standpoint of our trusting God with all the uncertainty of our future. And I'm reading from the New Living Translation, which is the translation I use in my personal and private devotions. Indeed, the Lord is robed in majesty. The Lord is king. He's armed with strength. The world stands firm and cannot be shaken. Your throne, O Lord, has stood from time immemorial. You yourself are from the everlasting past. And the psalmist begins with just a statement of the grandeur and the greatness and the eternal nature of God, and is pointing us to his providence and his strength, and kind of inviting us to see God for all that he is and who he is. But then he pivots very quickly in verse 3, and he writes this: The floods have risen up, O Lord. The floods have roared like thunder. The floods have lifted their pounding waves. We don't know the circumstances behind this particular psalm, but something was swirling around the psalmist that caused him to feel like floodwaters were just rising and pounding, and it was like a storm was gaining strength and was about to hit land with full strength. And we've experienced a lot of those hurricanes and storms, and we know just the anxiety and the fear of them approaching, and then of course the destruction they bring. I wrote in my journal this morning, all the uncertainties of the future feel like a storm gaining strength and about to hit land. And maybe you can identify with that. You know, we look around us over the past couple of months, and we're living in the midst of a number of storms. I just made a quick list of the obvious. COVID-19. And we're still living in that reality and trying to understand its presence and its implications, and of course there's the post-COVID implications that once we move past the disease itself, the implications to our economy and our lives for months, maybe years following. Of course, all that has emerged in this just explosive conversation around race and what has been bubbling under the surface that's kind of just erupted and is now very much in the forefront of our conversations right now and concerns about the future. Some of you as families are facing personal crises. Those are big crises, and some of you are facing personal storms with your children and your finances and your marriages. And of course, we are facing the uncertainty of what does it look like to come back together as Grace? What will it look like? And it can easily begin to feel like the floods are just picking up momentum, and they're louder, and the lightning and the swells are beginning, and it starts to create within us a feeling of helplessness. So once the psalmist has identified the reality of just what the uncertainty can stir within us, he says this in verse 4, but mightier, and you love the contrast, the floods have grown and lifted their pounding waves, but mightier than the violent raging of the seas, mightier than the breakers on the shore, the Lord above is mightier than these. And he brings us to this place of perspective. While the storms are real and the storms can be destructive, God is greater than all of that. He's mightier than all of that. And he ends the psalm by saying, your royal laws cannot be changed. Your reign, O Lord, is holy forever and ever. And he ends the psalm in this place of confidence in God's sovereignty over the creative world. As I was thinking through some of that this morning, and how do we pay attention to just the presence of God during these days? I wrote just a couple of thoughts. These are unformed thoughts. These are just fresh off of my time with the Lord this morning as I was praying about the anxiety and the uncertainty that I feel with all that's swirling around us. I wrote a couple of things. Share them with you. Maybe they'll encourage you. I hope they do. If we are going to rest in the full confidence of God's providence in the midst of this storm, I think we're wise to resist the fear that uncertainty can stir. There's so much we don't know. COVID, what it will look like, what will begin to take place in our culture and country with all these conversations around race and injustice, what Grace Church will look like. We just don't know. And it's easy in the midst of that not knowing and that uncertainty for fear to begin to fill in the gaps. And I think those of us who know God want to live in a place that we're going to resist and kind of push back against the fear that uncertainty brings, and ask God to give us a peace, a non-anxious presence in the face of all the uncertainty and all we don't know. Secondly, and this is going to be immensely practical, not only must we resist the tendency and the pull of fear in uncertainty, I think we need to resist the pull of the media. resisting, having to have an opinion or a response to every Facebook post or every story in the media. Right now, we're being overwhelmed and flooded with stories and informations and videos and all things that are just kind of overwhelming our circuits. And one of the things I've noticed about my own soul is that there's a close connection to the amount of time I spend on social media and the anxiety and fear and critical spirit I start to feel. And so I think very practically, we want to resist the pull of being drawn in to all that is being written and spoken and said in social media and Facebooks, and in guard against needing to respond to everything. It just stirs our soul up. There's a third thing, though, and the first two are things that we resist. We resist the pull of the fear, we resist the pull of the media, and then we begin to trust. And first of all, we choose to trust the way that God uses uncertainty and disruption to bring about needed change. That's just what God does. If you went back and thought about your personal story and the ways that God has moved you from point A to point B and brought about sometimes needed change that you did not want to move towards. And so God dropped disruption and difficulty and uncertainty in your life to kind of shake things up in a way to move us in a good direction. Well, what is true in our personal lives is true in people in general. It's true in our church. It's true in our city, in our country. So we need to hold on to the fact that just because things are being disrupted and they're not peaceful and it's not clear or certain, doesn't mean God's not working. Just the opposite. God does his best work in the disruption when guards begin to come down, and we need to trust that in the midst of all the uncertainty, God is very present, bringing about needed change in multiple ways, multiple places. And the last thing we trust is we trust God's presence. That God has not abandoned us. That in the midst of this storm, God will guide us. God will direct us where he seeks to lead us into our future. And the faith journey is not about getting certainty before we step into the future. Faith is about trusting God while we step into the unknown, uncertain realities. And so, friends, let's not be afraid of the future. Let's not shrink back from the uncertain times that we live in and the things that we cannot see, because we know deep in our bones that as we take those steps into that uncertain future, we'll find God's presence there. We'll find God's direction there. We'll find his protection there. We'll find his provision there. So God's reign is holy and forever, and mightier than the violent raging of the storms and our uncertainty. So friends, as you move into this weekend, may you just be encouraged and solid in the uncertainties of everything around us, in the person and the providence of this God we know. And look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.